Good morning, everyone, although you probably wouldn't think it's morning because we're starting to get the lighting sorted in our studio. So, guys, there's been a health warning issued by UK HSA as HIV diagnosis rates jump by more than 30%. Now, they're relating this to the influx of migration that we're having into the United Kingdom. Now, the data that I'm reading doesn't say whether this is legal migration or illegal migration. Now, before we get into the article, what I want to do is talk to you guys about my time as when I used to work away for the British Embassy in Baghdad. Now, every time I used to, now I was working for the British Embassy. Now, every time I went to Baghdad and applied for a visa, I think it was every time I came back off leave as well. But basically, before I even got into Iraq, I would have to send my, medical documents, proof of vaccinations. This was pre-2020, all sorts of stuff, a letter from my doctor to say that I was mentally, physically fit and well. That would then go to the embassy. The embassy would then apply for my visa through the Iraqi government. When I got into Baghdad, before I was even allowed out of the airport, a doctor would come and he would take a blood test. Now, I'm not sure exactly what that blood test was, what exactly they were looking for, but I know for a fact they were looking for HIV and hepatitis, and I'm sure they were looking for other things as well in my blood. So even before I got into that country, I had to be medically screened in depth. And even when I got into the country, so that was even before I got into the country. And then when I got into the country, the Iraqi government would insist that I did a blood test. So that was how, I made entry into another country. That was the legal route. And that was, that was relatively expensive. I wasn't paying for it myself. The company paid for it. But you can see that most people, when they go to another country, they have to do this. Now, if those blood tests would have come back and said I would have had, for example, HIV, I can pretty much guarantee I would have been on the next plane out of that country as quickly as possible. And if I said I'd already been diagnosed with HIV, I just wouldn't have got a visa for Iraq. So that's what the entry method is into Iraq. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you off an article here, guys. I'll put these links in the description. Obviously, I don't want any videos getting taken down for misinformation. So like I said, I'm just going to read off the article and then I'm going to give a little bit of commentary. England HIV diagnosis hits a 15-year high after surge of cases among migrants coming in. Now, the information doesn't tell us whether the migrants coming in are coming in the legal routes or the illegal routes. The number of HIV diagnoses in England, we just said that. Cases jumped in 2023 by 51% on the previous year, with more than 6,000 people in England diagnosed with HIV. Official data shows the influx of diagnosis has largely been driven by the number of people contracting HIV abroad. So these people are getting HIV in other countries, then they're coming to the United Kingdom. For the first time on record, the number of people diagnosed with HIV after catching the virus abroad exceeds those catching it within England. So what this data is telling us is we don't really have we didn't have a problem of people catching HIV in the United Kingdom, but what it looks like the data is showing is people are catching it in other countries. Then they're coming to live in the United Kingdom, and now we have this rise in cases. According to the data, 53% were registered as having been previously diagnosed abroad, with an overwhelming majority coming from Africa. So, I don't know if these guys are getting visas and we're just, the data doesn't show it and the article doesn't tell us, but it's either the case of they're applying for visas and we know that they've got HIV and we know that they've contracted it in Africa and we're still approving the visas, or they're just coming here on the rubber dinghies and when they get in hotels, they're saying, yeah, we've got HIV, or, the information is not clear. Overall, half of these cases involve individuals born in East Africa, with an additional 22% originating from other regions of Africa. The report added that around 8% of people were born in Asia and Latin America and the Caribbean. Leading charity experts say post-pandemic surge in cases puts the UK's target to stop new cases of HIV by 2030. That date always comes up again, doesn't it? 2030 at risk. So it looks like, in the United Kingdom, we were on track for pretty much eradicating HIV in the United Kingdom by 2030. But now with this new sudden influx of, from what the article says, people contracting HIV overseas and then moving to the United Kingdom, it looks like that's not going to be the case again. So what are those two options, and why is the data and why are we being kept away? and why is that data being kept away from us? Are these people who've come over on rubber dinghies, or are these people who've applied for visas and gone through the legal routes, and are these legal migrants? So I'll put these two links in the description. I'll put these two. I will put these. There's two articles that I'm going from, and I'll put the links in the description. But it just seems to me that it's harder to make. It's harder to get into Iraq than it is to get in the United Kingdom at the moment. And we've seen, and this is just HIV, and I could, and I would be speculating, and it would be wild speculation if I were to say there was an uptick in any other, viruses, diseases, coming from abroad. For those of you who've worked overseas or, especially in Africa, you'll know that the due care and attention to medicine and, medical procedures in those parts of the world, it's just not where it is in a first world country. So these people would naturally have a lower, what's the word I'm looking for? They would naturally have a lower medical compliance rate, I guess. Medical compliance rate, I guess. So the situation is we're having more and more people turn up on our shores, and, these people, I would assume, don't have the same checks and balances that I did when I used to work as a contractor, and I used to work for the British Embassy overseas. Remember what I just said, how difficult it actually is to make entry into Iraq if you're going through the legal route. So this is not anything against any other nation. This is about nations protecting themselves. So the Iraqi government, they were protecting themselves medically because they didn't want people coming into their country with HIV. They didn't want people coming into their country with hepatitis because, why would you? At what point would you, risk your population to that sort of, those sort of diseases, those sort of viruses? You just wouldn't do it. Any sane government wouldn't knowingly and willingly do that. So, the question is, how do we deal with this situation? Because it's clearly there. The evidence is out there now, and I mean, this evidence was from what, 2023? Let me check. This evidence was up. Yeah, so this was up on the, so this is evidence, this is data from 2023, and it is up on the data from 2022. So the 2024 data is not actually out yet. So the cases jumped in 2023 by 51% on the previous year. Now it'd be interesting if we could go back like 5 years or something and say, right, how much of the cases jumped from, I don't know, 2015 or something? What's the increase in cases of HIV from now? Let's relate them to 2015 and see where those cases have jumped or how those cases have moved. Because when we do these statistics and we just say, oh, the cases have jumped 51% by last year, if the cases on the previous year also jumped by 51%, and I've not got any data to say that they have, and I've not got any data to say that they haven't, but then you see the data is really difficult to, it's really difficult to, to see what's happening, because case on case, it goes exponentially, because 50% of 100, it's 50, but 50% of 200 is 100. So it's still 50%, but we don't know the actual numbers. I'd love to know more data about this. But anyway, guys, I'll try and find you the source data if I can and share that with you guys in the description. But if not, I will put the 2 links to the, to the 2 articles I'm going from. But basically, we have a HIV warning now from UKH. What is it? Hang on. HIV warning issued by UKHSA, and that is looking like that is being driven by migrants from Africa. I don't know what to make of it, guys. I'd like to think that the government are not approving visas of people coming from, these places in Africa that have a history of being pre-diagnosed in Africa or wherever they're pre-diagnosed, which obviously the evidence says it here. But equally, I would like to see what is being done if these migrants are coming over from Africa and they're not coming here legally. What are we doing about this? Because somebody's got to foot this bill. These people pose a clear risk. And how do we deal with this? Anyway, guys, I am going to Mag to Grid. I'll get you some more videos later.